I just found out my wife secretly transferred $250, $0 of our estate to her business partner during our divorce. Turns out she's been planning to steal our family home and his assets to escape with millions. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. But here I am, staring at my phone in disbelief, realizing that everything I thought was real about my marriage was just a carefully constructed lie. It all started with small signs, missed calls, late nights with no explanation, her phone always locked, and her suddenly becoming more secretive about her emails and texts. But I brushed those off at first, convincing myself she was just stressed or busy with work. I mean, she always insisted she loved me, that I was her everything, and I believed her because I wanted to. Then things took a sharp turn. About 2 weeks ago, I decided to check our joint bank account. Just a quick glance, nothing suspicious, right? Wrong. I saw a transfer of $250, $0 from our estate to a business account under her name. My heart stopped. I immediately knew something was wrong. I pulled up the details, and it turns out she transferred that huge chunk of money during our divorce process. How could she do this? I thought we were planning to split fairly, that we'd end things amicably. But no, she was planning to run away with millions, probably to some tropical island or some luxury penthouse. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I don't have a fancy job. I work in construction, making decent money but not millions. And she's always been the charming, bitchy wife who could manipulate her way out of anything. She's good at lying, so good, in fact, that I never suspected her of anything serious. But now I see behind her mask. She's been planning her escape all along, and I was just too blind or too trusting to see it. The worst part, her excuse when I confronted her was that she was saving for our future, that she needed the money for business opportunities she was exploring. Yeah, right. She's been lying about her job, hiding things from me for months. I found out she's been secretly meeting with this so-called partner, a guy named Jason, who she claims is just a friend helping her expand her small online shop. But I dug deeper. I found messages, texts, even calls between her and Jason at odd hours, some late at night, some early mornings. It was obvious they were more than business associates. I confronted her last night. The moment I saw her face when I brought up the bank transfer, her eyes flickered with guilt, but she quickly recovered and started spouting some bullshit about how I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of cheating. She called me insecure, said I was overreacting, that I didn't trust her, but I knew better. I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the way her voice cracked when she said she was just trying to make things work. I was furious. How could she betray me like this? Not just emotionally, but financially. She's been planning to steal our home, her share of the assets, and run off with her lover. She's a bitch, plain and simple, and I don't know how I didn't see it coming sooner. All those little lies, her sneaky behavior, turns out she's been planning this for months. I felt so stupid. For trusting her, for believing that she loved me, for thinking we had something real. That night after she went to bed, I sat in the living room, scrolling through her phone, trying to piece everything together. I found messages between her and Jason talking about getting away, making a fresh start, and even plans to split the money once she had enough. I realized she's been using me, my money, and our life together as her stepping stone. She's a schemer, a liar, and a cheat. And now I'm left here, trying to figure out what to do next. I know I need to act fast, but I'm just so overwhelmed with anger, sadness, and that sinking feeling that I was blind all along. This is the moment I decide I need to take control, to get my life back. But I also know that this is just the beginning of a long, complicated battle, and I have no idea how it's going to end. After discovering the truth about her betrayal, I felt like my world was crashing down around me. The anger was simmering just beneath the surface, but underneath that, there was a deep sense of betrayal that cut even harder. I kept replaying everything, the late nights, her excuses, the way she always dismissed my concerns with a bitchy smile and a sharp remark. It was all a lie. She had been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. I decided I had to confront her again, face to face. I wanted answers, real answers, not her typical bullshit. That morning, I waited until she was in the shower, then I went through her phone again, digging for more evidence. I found dozens of messages between her and Jason, plans, flirtations, talk about the money, about how she was going to leave me with nothing and take everything she could. It made my stomach turn. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was orchestrating her own escape behind my back, all while I was working my ass off to provide for us. When she finally came out, I was sitting on the couch, her phone in my hand. She looked at me, her face already starting to show that bitchy smirk she always used when she was about to lie her way out of something. I held up her phone. "You want to explain this?" I asked flatly. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically. "Oh, look at you, snooping around like some jealous boyfriend," she snapped, trying to brush it off. "It's nothing, just work stuff, you're overreacting." I didn't buy it. Work stuff, really? You've been secretly meeting with Jason, planning to run off with his money, and you think I'm overreacting? My voice was tense, but I kept my cool. She started to lie, spinning some story about how Jason was just helping her with her online shop, how they'd been friends for years, and how I was just being paranoid. But I'd seen the messages. I knew she was full of shit. Her reaction was typical defensive, bitchy, and dismissive. She told me I was crazy, that I was jealous, and that I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I could see right through her lies. I told her if she was planning to leave, she better be honest with me. That's when she finally snapped, told me I was possessive and controlling, and that I was just insecure because I couldn't handle her success. I felt sick. The woman I thought I knew was a manipulator, a liar, and a thief. She was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the problem, but I knew the truth now. She'd been planning her escape for months, and I was just too blind to see it. My mind was racing. I wanted to scream, to cry, to break something. But instead, I just sat there, stunned, realizing that everything we built was a lie. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the money transfer, the house, her plans with Jason. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I needed to get a lawyer, figure out how much she had stolen and what my options were. But deep down, I also felt a strange mix of heartbreak and rage. I'd loved her, believed in her, and now I saw her for what she really was, a scheming bitch who was willing to destroy everything for a shot at some new life with her lover and millions of dollars. I started researching everything I could about her finances, her assets, and the law. I reached out to a lawyer that day, set up a meeting for the next morning. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. She had been lying to me from the start, and I had to protect what little I still had left, myself, my future, and whatever was left of the life I thought I was building with her. I kept thinking about that moment when I first realized she was cheating, how naive I'd been. It's like I was asleep and suddenly woke up to this nightmare. I didn't want to believe she was capable of this kind of betrayal, but now I had no choice. I was angry, hurt, and ready to fight for what's mine. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I won't go down without a fight. I just hope I can get some justice before she manages to run away with everything. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. The adrenaline from the night before had worn off, leaving me with this hollow, heavy feeling. I knew I couldn't just sit around and stew in my anger. I had to act fast. I called the lawyer I found online, a guy named Mark who specialized in divorce and financial crimes. He listened carefully as I laid everything out, about the transfer, her lies, her plans with Jason, and promised me we could start building a case right away. Mark told me I needed to get a forensic accountant involved, someone who could trace every penny and start gathering evidence of her fraudulent activities. He warned me that she'd probably try to hide or move assets again, so I had to be quick. Meanwhile, I started to feel the full weight of what I was up against. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a potential theft on a massive scale. She was trying to walk away with millions, and I was left with scraps of a life I thought was secure. I spent the rest of the day gathering everything I could: bank statements, emails, texts, even her social media activity. I also contacted a private investigator I knew from a guy at work. I figured if she was meeting Jason secretly, there might be more I didn't know. I needed to know where she was hiding, who she was talking to, and what she was planning. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. That evening, I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with evidence. I waited until she was home. Then I showed her the bank statements, the messages, the proof I had. I laid everything out on the table. Her face turned pale, then red with rage. She started sputtering her usual lies, saying she was just trying to protect us, that Jason was just a friend helping her with her business, and that I was crazy for accusing her of theft. But I didn't let her spin her web this time. I told her I knew everything about the transfer, her plans, her lies. She tried to deny it, of course, but her voice cracked and her eyes darted nervously around the room. That's when I saw the real her. She was scared, cornered, and furious. She spat at me, calling me insecure, jealous, and paranoid, then stormed out of the room. I followed her, demanding she tell me the truth. That's when she blurted out a new lie, saying she was doing all this for us, that she wanted to save our family, and that she never intended to cheat or steal. But her words rang hollow. I could see right through her. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the betrayal, the money, the house, everything. I realized I was in a war now, and I had to fight for what was mine. I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and rage. I had loved her once, believed in her, and now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who had been planning her escape from the start. I also started to question everything about our marriage. How much of it was real? Had she ever loved me, or was I just a paycheck and a convenient partner? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I told myself I'd fight tooth and nail to get my fair share and stop her from taking what she didn't deserve. The legal process would be long and messy, but I was determined. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, financially, emotionally, and maybe even psychologically. In the meantime, I kept digging. I contacted the forensic accountant, who promised to start tracing every penny of the $250, $0 transfer, and any other suspicious activity. I also scheduled a meeting with Mark, my lawyer, for the next day. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Her lies had become too obvious, her manipulations too blatant. I had to be prepared for her next moves because I knew she'd try to cover her tracks or make a run for it. As I sat there staring at the pile of evidence I'd gathered, I realized how much trust I'd lost in this whole thing. I'd believed in our marriage, in her love, in the life we built. But it was all a lie. She was a user, a schemer, a thief. And now I was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I had to fight for what was mine, for the truth, and for the dignity she tried to strip away from me. The day after I laid everything out, the legal process kicked into gear faster than I expected. Mark, my lawyer, was sharp and ruthless. He immediately filed for an emergency freeze on all her assets, including the house, the accounts linked to her, and any suspicious transfers. He told me that if she tried to hide or move money again, we could stop it before she managed to disappear with millions. Honestly, I felt a tiny bit of relief knowing I was finally taking action, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was planning her next move. That night, I decided to hire the private investigator I'd contacted, someone I'd known from work who had a reputation for digging up dirt. I told him I wanted to know everything she was doing, everywhere she was going, and who she was talking to. I also asked him to follow her when she met with Jason or anyone else suspicious. The last thing I wanted was for her to slip away before I could stop her. Within a few hours, the Pi called me back with some shocking intel. She'd been seen visiting a small, nondescript hotel downtown alone for hours. She had a suitcase with her and she seemed nervous, anxious even. It was clear she was trying to make some kind of escape plan. My stomach clenched. She was getting ready to run, probably to her lover or some secret hideout. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. She'd been planning this all along. That night I sat in the living room, reviewing all the evidence, trying to piece everything together. I was furious, but also deeply hurt. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face, manipulate me for months, and then try to steal everything we had? I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by this scheming, bitchy version who only cared about her own escape. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I started drafting a detailed timeline of her activities, her lies, her plans. I also made sure to record everything I could, screenshots, voice memos, and copies of her messages. I was preparing to show her that I was one step ahead, that I knew her game. The next morning, I called her out when she woke. I had all the evidence spread out on the table. I told her I knew about her hotel visit, about her plans to run, and how I was already working to stop her. Her face twisted into a sneer. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was crazy, that I was making things up, but I cut her off. I told her I had proof, and if she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. She looked furious, her bitchy attitude flaring up. "You're just jealous," she spat. "You're insecure. You think I'm cheating, but I'm not. I'm just trying to build a better life for us, something you're too stupid to see." That was her go-to, gaslighting, making me doubt myself, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her that her better life was just her way of running away with Jason and our money, that I was going to make sure she paid for her lies and theft. She stormed out of the house, screaming she'd leave me with nothing, that I'd regret messing with her, but I stayed calm. I knew I had her cornered now. The evidence was stacking up and the law was on my side. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about justice. I was tired of being played for a fool. Throughout the day, I kept thinking about what I'd lost: trust, love, stability. But I also realized I had a chance to start over, to rebuild my life without her. I'd been naive, trusting her too much, believing her lies. But now I was finally waking up. I had to be strong for myself and for whatever future I could salvage from this mess. I made a promise to myself to see this through, no matter how long it took. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life, my house, or my money, not without a fight. The weeks that followed felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every day brought new revelations, new lies uncovered, and new obstacles to overcome. Mark, my lawyer, worked tirelessly to build a case that would stop her from disappearing with the rest of our assets. The forensic accountant found traces of her transferring more money into secret accounts, probably trying to hide it all. And the private investigator kept tabs on her, confirming she was still planning her escape, this time perhaps to a country with no extradition or a place where she thought she could start fresh. Meanwhile, I was spiraling through a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, heartbreak, and a strange sense of clarity. I realized how much I'd been blind to her manipulations. She'd always been the bitchy, selfish type, but I never thought she'd go this far. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about herself, her lover, and the money she could steal. It hit me hard that I'd trusted her with everything: our house, our life savings, my heart, and she'd used that trust to betray me. One day, Mark called me with some devastating news. She made a move. She'd gone to the bank, tried to withdraw some of the stolen money, and was caught trying to cover her tracks. The bank flagged her account, and now she was under investigation. That was a huge win for us. It meant she couldn't just run off with her loot anymore. But it also meant she was getting desperate. I knew she'd escalate her tactics. Soon, that evening, I confronted her again. She was at the house, acting innocent, but her eyes told a different story. I laid out everything I knew: her plans, her lies, her attempt to withdraw more money. She tried to deny everything, but her voice cracked under my steady gaze. I told her I had enough evidence to send her to jail if she kept this up. Her bitchy attitude was on full display, but I saw her falter. She knew she was cornered. Her reaction was classic. She threw a tantrum, calling me crazy, possessive, and jealous, trying to spin her lies one last time. "You're just mad because I don't want to stay with your sorry ass," she spat. "I've been planning this for months and you're just too stupid to see it." I felt a mixture of disgust and pity. She was trying to gaslight me again, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her she had two choices: come clean and face the consequences, or keep lying and face the full legal weight of her actions. That night, I sat alone, staring at the walls of what used to be our home. I thought about everything: the money, the betrayal, her bitchy attitude, all the lies. I realized I had to be prepared for her next move. She was desperate now, and desperation makes people do crazy things. I decided to tighten the screws, more surveillance, more legal pressure, and preparing myself emotionally for the fallout. I knew she'd try to offload her assets or make some last-minute move to escape. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I was done trusting her, done believing her lies. This was the end of the line for her. Whatever she was planning, I was ready to stop her. I'd fight this to the bitter end for what little dignity I had left and for the chance to rebuild what she tried to destroy. I didn't know how this would finish, but I knew I wouldn't give up. I'd make sure she paid for her treachery, even if it meant losing everything: my house, my peace of mind, my trust in people. Whatever it took, I was going to see her fall, and I'd come out of this stronger. The final stretch was the most intense. Mark had everything lined up: court orders, the forensic reports, the evidence of her attempts to hide money. We filed for a restraining order, preventing her from accessing any more of our joint accounts, and I made sure the house was frozen under legal protection. She was furious, of course, accusing me of ruining her life, calling me every name in the book, but I couldn't care less. My focus was on stopping her from walking away with everything. One day, she tried to make a final move. I caught her trying to transfer the last of the money to a foreign account she'd hidden in a fake company name. The bank flagged it immediately. That was the moment she realized she was beaten. Her bitchy, manipulative attitude crumbled completely. She broke down in tears, screaming about how I was ruining her future, how she deserved better, and how she had no choice. But it was all just her trying to save face. I saw through her: the desperation, the lies, the greed. The court hearings were brutal. She kept denying everything, trying to spin her lies one last time, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge saw through her theatrics and ordered her to return the stolen money, pay damages, and face charges for fraud. I felt a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion: relief that it was finally over, exhaustion from the emotional I'd been on. After the verdict, I moved out of the house, my house, into a small apartment nearby. I needed space to breathe, to heal. I realized I'd lost a lot: trust, love, stability, but I'd gained clarity. I saw her for who she really was: a manipulative, selfish bitch who had tried to destroy everything I worked for. But I also saw my own strength. I'd fought back, I'd stood my ground, and I'd exposed her lies. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons. Never ignore the small signs of trouble, because they often lead to something much worse. Trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. And most importantly, never be afraid to stand up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is against you. I know I'll never fully forget what happened, but I also know I'm stronger now. I'll rebuild my life from the ashes, and I'll do it without her. Because no amount of money, lies, or betrayal is worth sacrificing your dignity. That's the biggest lesson I take away from all this. Sometimes, the only way to win is to walk away, pick yourself up, and never let anyone steal your peace. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the strength to do the same.